Hello boys and girls, Lord Hawkeye here again, and welcome to 10 more favorite statist arguments. Why? Because there was just too many good ones to fit into the first. Anyway, no sense wasting any time, let us begin. Number 10. Well, I went through X government program and it worked fine for me. That's nice. Did you know my grandmother recently celebrated her 92nd birthday despite the fact that she smoked all her life? Does this therefore prove that smoking is harmless? Let me make this very clear. Personal anecdotes are not and will not ever be acceptable as empirical arguments. They are unverifiable, they are tainted by bias, and they're a sample of only one. That is far, far, far too small to be valid data. Not to mention, it's a complete evasion of the moral question of the state. Even if you're absolutely right in that the NHS took very good care of you, that doesn't excuse the fact that it's an institution funded by coercion. Being polite about stealing is still stealing. There were plenty of businesses who were helped by the mafia too. Does that excuse the mafia's crimes? No. The ends do not justify the means. Number 9. Well, I've paid taxes for years and I don't see any gun aimed at me. So threats are not crimes if they're not actually carried out? I'm afraid your own laws would beg to differ on that. Name me something the state does that you morally oppose. Now, do you understand that this is funded by your tax dollars? If taxation is voluntary, then I would have to ask you, why are you voluntarily funding something that you morally oppose? You see the problem? So which is it? Taxation is coercive, or you are the worst kind of moral hypocrite. Choose. Number 8. We just need small government. Anarchy is too extreme. Anarchism is just simply the logical conclusion of the non-aggression principle. Voluntarism is moral, aggression is immoral. Since the state is an institution that claims the right to use aggression, it is completely incompatible with the NAP. So what you're really saying is consistency in principles is too extreme, and that moderation in principles is preferable. And if that's really what you're saying, well, I think you may be a little shaky in what principles actually are. If you can just pick and choose where you apply principles, well then it's not really much of a principle now, is it? Number 7. Anarchy requires everyone to be saints, as opposed to a state that presupposes that evil people won't be interested in joining or lobbying it, despite the fact that evil people always have joined and lobbied it. Without a state, power is decentralized with no state for the immoral to influence and gain power from. Using coercion will only get you ostracized and thus reap short-term gains at best. Even scamming rarely works in the long run in a free market. The only way to truly gain wealth in a free society is to serve the needs of your fellow man. You don't have to care about him or even like him. In this way, even evil people can work in harmony with others if for no reason than for their own benefit. The existence of evil people is the very reason why statism cannot work. It assumes that evil people are unaware of the state, and thus all you're doing is providing evil with a roadmap to power. This has always been the case, and there's no evidence to suggest that it will ever change. Number 6. The warlords will take over. Short answer, the warlords have already taken over. What exactly did statism solve? How exactly would a warlord take over without a state? You could amass weapons, but everyone else has weapons too, so you've got no clear advantage in that respect. You could run a defense agency and stock weapons, but that would require you to raise prices with no corresponding increase in services, which would just invite your competition to undercut you. Well, maybe if you just happen to be rich. What if local firms objected to this and refused to serve you until you cease and desist? Put simply, if you want to be a warlord in a stateless society, you better damn well hope that nobody ever catches on to what you're up to, and if you think amassing a sufficient army to overpower a nation is something you can do in complete secrecy, you really watch way too many movies. Since people are concerned about warlords taking over, this inevitably creates checks and balances that undermine any attempts at a violent takeover. Really? Maybe you'd have ground here if statism managed to solve the problem of war, but so far it's really not doing a good job in that respect. Besides, right now if you want to be a warlord, all you gotta do is run for president and tell whatever and be the best liar. It's really not I really don't see how that's helping. Number 5. if you use government services, then you're a hypocrite. This argument would have merit if I were actually voluntarily funding government action despite morally condemning it, but that's just simply not the case at all. The money is forcibly seized from me. Not to mention, if my taxes fund a government service, yet I refuse to use it out of principle, does this in any way act to discourage the government from providing that service now that they're essentially getting my money for nothing? Hardly. If a slave accepts a meal from his master, does he thus condone slavery? No. He's just making the best of an immoral situation, and one could hardly blame him for doing so. If I'm going to be robbed, what's wrong with me trying to get back what I can from it? Whatever the case, this still makes the state the immoral aggressor, not me. Number 4. Taxes are fees for services. Then why is it a percentage of your income? It's not like Bill Gates is getting more roads, more courts, more police, and more protection than I am, so why does he pay more than me? That doesn't make any sense. Also, since when can a service be forced on you without your permission or knowledge, and then the service demand whatever price they want with no prior agreement? Can I mow your lawn while you're asleep and then demand $100 for the work? I mean, come on, no court in the world would take that seriously for even a second, and yet for some inexplicable reason, it's considered completely moral insane when the state does it. Demanding a percentage of one's income is far more consistent with the behavior of the mafia than any legitimate business. Number 3. Well, I like government and you have no right to force your views on me. Well, good for you, and this may blow your mind, but I'm not forcing anything on you. If you want to invest in some communist-style setup, if you want to trust some third party to run your finances for you, heck, if you want to swear lifetime fealty to someone, you're completely free to do so in a stateless society. I have no moral objection to that whatsoever. I might advise against it, but I assure you I won't forcibly try to stop you. What I object to is the idea that I'm obligated to participate myself despite my personal wishes. If you subscribe to an idea, that's your choice. If you want to convince me to participate as well, you're welcome to. If you think that entitles to force my compliance should I disagree, now you've overstepped your boundaries. This argument is mere projection and an attempt to deflect moral judgment. Number 2. Monopolies would form without the government. First of all, the government is a monopoly, so nice special pleading there. Second of all, can you name me one monopoly in history that occurred without government support? The bar having a complete monopoly on lawyers? Government supported. The AMA having a complete monopoly on doctor licensing? Government supported. The Fed having a complete monopoly on currency? Government supported. And lo and behold, their services suck and their prices are highway robbery. Gee, the state really seems to care about protecting you from monopolies, doesn't it? But let's say it is completely possible for monopolies to form in a free market. Okay, what's the worst they could do? Charge outlandish prices for their products and that would be bad? Well, riddle me this. What if they not only charged outlandish prices, but they could also force you to pay for them? What if they could force you to pay even if you didn't use their services at all? Would that not be far worse? Are you starting to see how blow up your house and to prevent an infestation level illogical this is? I thought so. Number 1. But there would be just chaos with no government. The all-purpose status argument. Where do I even start? First of all, but if we didn't have arranged marriages, people would be going around marrying whoever they want. It would be chaos. And I think your reply to that would be, yeah, and that's exactly what we want. The internet is chaotic fundamentally, and that's exactly how we want it. Nature is a tinker, not a designer, and we owe everything to that fact. So, first lesson. Chaos is as necessary as order. It is not inherently bad, as this argument seems to imply. But let's think deeper about this. Laws are absurdly complex. Nobody can read, understand, or comply with them. Politicians can disregard their vows and even outright commit crimes against their own people with no ill consequence. I mean, they don't even try to hide it. Regulations are up for grabs to the highest bidder with absolutely no principled basis whatsoever, many of which contradict each other. Banksters can scam the public and get bailouts for it. It goes on and on and on. People, tell me seriously, is this your idea of order? Really? Shall I spell it out for you? Every single thing you are afraid of happening without a government has already happened. I mean, not just some of them, all of them. Being victimized by rich people? Already here. Warlords? Already here. People killing and getting away with it? Already here. Economy in turmoil? Already here. So really, none of you are in a position to be demanding answers as to how anarchism is going to solve society's problems, considering that statism has utterly failed in every possible way to solve them, and in fact has caused the majority of them. The anarchist position is not that we know the answer of how society should be solved. All we're saying is, your solutions suck. Really, really suck. And we can't come up with the real ones until you stop doing what you're doing right now. That's how it is. And the really sad thing, you folks already know this. This is not some great revelation. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. Come on, folks. You still have war, for crying out loud. 6,000 years and governments are still solving conflicts the same way we did back in the caveman times? That's embarrassing. And you should be embarrassed too. Trusting the most violent and exploitive group in human history to protect you from violence and exploitation is nothing short of complete insanity. If you continue to believe in statism despite this, if you continue to delude yourself into thinking that the state is suddenly going to grow a conscience, get its act together, and start actually making good on its historically hollow promises, well then look forward to a life of disappointment, and I hate to say it, but you absolutely deserve it at this point. I just really wish you weren't dragging the rest of us down with your fantasies as well. And that's another 10's favorite statist arguments. That wasn't that fun. Until next time, be aware and be wise.